Hello, I'm Chris Davis. I'm Director of CCS Europe, and I'm very pleased to be able to introduce my colleague here today, Paolo Testini, who's the head of CCS with Snam, which is the largest gas operator, pipeline operator in Italy. In fact, I think, Paolo, possibly the largest gas operator, pipeline operator in Europe.
Yes, I would say so.
Now we're going to be talking about the Ravenna project. Very exciting because a lot of CCS discussion, as everyone knows, is concentrated around the North Sea basin. But here we're talking about a project which is off the ground and starting to run in Italy. Now Ravenna, Paolo, this is northeast Italy, and you're looking at building an industrial CO2 collection complex which will be feeding into storage fields in the Adriatic. Is that right?
Yeah, it's exactly that. So, as you said, Ravenna is a city which is on the coast of the Adriatic Sea, so in the North Adriatic Sea. And just offshore Ravenna, we have these depleted fields which used to produce natural gas. And the project basically is to use those fields in order to store CO2. So the project, as you said, is the largest one in the southern part of Europe and in the Med area, and is going to be quite a sizable project. So the overall capacity of the fields is estimated to be of 500 million tons, which is quite a sizable amount of CO2. Also thinking about the targets that the European Commission has set. And we are engaged to develop this project to serve both Italy and potentially other countries which are basically in the southern part of Europe.
Yeah, again, it's useful to know that this potential exists in places like the Adriatic, because some of the impressions that have been created over the years is we've got a very division between East and West Europe and North and South, and some areas are geologically more beneficial than others. So again, the fact that the Adriatic is a potential major source for CO2 storage is helpful, frankly.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons why we basically invested in this project together with our partner ENI, and why we are promoting this project, and why we actually started the pilot phase of this project, and I can tell you more about this pilot phase. But the real reason is that CCS, we really believe that CCS is a fundamental lever to achieve the decarbonization target, and specifically there are some industries, the hard-to-abate sector, just to mention, the cement, the steel, glass, ceramic, all of these industries will likely need CCS to decarbonize, and that's the only lever they can action in order to achieve their goals. And we have, in Italy, in the northern part of Italy, but also in other regions in the south and in the Mediterranean areas, we have a lot of companies who are basically active in these sectors. And if we don't give them an opportunity to decarbonize with CCS, they are basically at risk of being able to continue to do their activity, which means a lot of GDP, a lot of jobs, which could be potentially at risk. So Ravenna is, we are lucky to have this opportunity, and we are fully engaged to develop it in order to basically achieve this goal.
Yeah, well, this is important because we have so many projects which exist on paper only. This has been given the green light. I know it's only a pilot stage at the moment, but you're going forward, and I think the plan is first stage 25,000 tons of CO2 to be captured?
So basically, yes, what we are doing today is basically this pilot phase, and we are capturing CO2 with a rate, and injecting CO2 with a rate of up to 25,000 tons per annum of CO2. This is basically the pilot phase, which we kicked off last year in August. The industrial phase is a phase which is expected to deliver up to 4 million tons per annum by 2030. ETS today has a value which is, I think, around 75 euro per ton, which is basically a value that doesn't allow the CCS to be in the money. So unless you are under very, very positive and all the conditions are extremely good, the business case is out of the money. So as of today, we need subsidies for this, for this business, for the CCS to be in the money. The system needs some subsidies for the capture and for the infrastructure. Then 2 points on the subsidies. The first one, as you said, ETS today is a 75 euro per ton price. But we know that there are some changes which are coming for the ETS system, and all the scenario basically project an important growth of the price. So it means that,
indeed with the withdrawal of free allowances slowly,
yeah, that's exactly,
we always expect
that's
the price
exactly
to go up. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because you just don't know, it's guesswork as to what prices.
Exactly, and it's difficult, to make an investment. But if you believe, that this price is going up, it means that the subsidy is going to basically last for a few years. Actually, we're going to need the subsidy just to basically kick it off. And for instance, those countries which have taken a contract for difference approach, a carbon contract for difference approach, with the reference price with the ETS as a reference price, basically they are going to pay the subsidy only until when the ETS price has not grown to the point that basically it brings the business in the money. And one other point, one may say, okay, why should I subsidize an industry like CCS? My answer is, we have some examples, some other technologies. Think about, solar PV, wind energy. Today they are, I think they are great technology. They allow us to produce electricity which is clean. Unfortunately, the problem that they have is that electricity is not good to decarbonize some of the sector.
The cost of CO2 storage, the cost of capture will come down as the technology improves. But it's getting going,
Yeah.
So when we look at that the subsidy issue, do you have any European funding for this initial pilot project? Or does it all come?
No, it is not for the pilot project. Actually, what I can tell you is that basically there are some funding through the Innovation Fund that has been allocated to emitters, both in Italy and abroad. And those emitters are looking at the developments of Ravenna CCS because they identify Ravenna CCS as the ideal destination for their CO2.
So we start off here at Ravenna. You've got a CO2 pilot project. You've got CO2 being collected, being captured from a project, from a compression plant, I think, which you operate yourselves.
Yes.
And then it's going to a depleted gas storage field, which I think is operated by Eni. So that's all internal. But then you're thinking of reaching out to all sorts of other industries that may want to capture their CO2 and feed it into this pipeline. So are you having talks with a range of different companies?
Yes. We are in discussion with several companies. Actually, we have some memorandum of understanding with some of them. What we have done last year was to basically do a market survey. So we launched basically a public, let's say, procedure to collect non-binding interest. And we got interest from 61 industrial sites.
Really?
Yes,
well,
which
huge.
is a very high number, and the volumes are the like of 30 million tons per annum in 2030, from starting 2030. So if you compare it with the capacity of the site, we are way in excess of the total capacity.
So we're not just talking about cement works here, we're talking about a whole range.
No, we are talking about all range of hard-to-abate sectors and power generation, and also some carbon removals.
So these are people who are thinking, you provide the pipeline, you provide a network, a means of shipping the CO2, and we'll start taking an interest in capturing the CO2.
That's exactly the way we are basically putting the stories.
Well, just as there's a requirement for some national subsidies certainly for the foreseeable future. Also, there's a potential here for generating jobs within Europe. And are we going to end up simply importing all the equipment from China, or are we going to be able to create
No, I think we have there is a study that we have done together with Eni and Ambrosetti, the European house Ambrosetti. It's a public study. A project like Ravenna could create somewhere like 15,000 jobs. And on top of that, probably even more importantly, it could sustain up to 1 million jobs. Because as I told you before, if we are not successful in decarbonizing those industries that need CCS, we basically put at risk the industries that need CCS to decarbonize. You were mentioning also, are we going to import materials and know-how from abroad? I don't think so. Our plan is not that one. Actually, the Ravenna area is an area which has been historically, full of know-how, competencies, technical competencies, And our purpose is actually to basically leverage those skills, those industries, and that know-how in order to do the project. And for sure, a close cooperation also with the local authorities and the local community is going to be crucial in order to have this project succeed.
Okay, well, let me come on to that. Public opposition or public support is, you're enthusing me as someone who wants to fight climate change with the potential here. But do you have opposition, or do you have strong public support, or what?
Let me say that I think we have a good public support. We have observed, a good commitment. There was some criticism that we received. I think we basically answered all of the points from a technical standpoint, from a safety standpoint, from any standpoint. We have, I think, sufficient technical responses, and so we are willing to basically have a discussion on any of the point, but I don't see big issues. And coming back to your point in terms of support, we have observed a very good support from both the central and the local government, but clearly, engaging with them and providing all the information that they might need is going to be crucial in the upcoming weeks and months.
Okay, you talk a good talk, but this is only about a pilot project. Realistically, what's the timescale for taking this up to a much bigger stage?
Clearly the real timescale will depend on when basically the context will allow us to move into the next phase, which is a final investment decision, and then clearly moving it to the construction phase. Also, the permitting is going to be fundamental in order to get to operation, but our target, as I told you, is to have the project at scale, which means 4 million tons per annum by 2030.
4 million tons by 2030?
Yes, exactly.
And that means that you will have to open up new, or do you simply expand the storage site that you have at the moment?
No, it's basically, as I told you, basically the storage sites, it's a network basically of fields. So progressively we are going to basically exploit the different fields. Right.
But you're going to have to reach out to get the CO2 from different industrial locations.
Absolutely, which means that we will need to have basically a pipeline network, and we already have like a preliminary design. We started the permitting phase for the first basically part of this piping, and which means that we will need to have online a terminal to receive basically the CO2, which is going to be either shipped or transported by truck or train. It's like you need a value chain approach. You need the full value chain to be capable to basically move into the final investment decision more or less at the same time, because each party of the value chain is dependent on the other one. So that's the challenge. What we have, as I told you before, we're having discussion with the potential emitters. We also basically passed this message to the government and the institutions which are basically studying the CCS and which are expected to release let's say legislation and regulation for CCS, so they are well aware that there is this situation, so I think they will take it into account, and then there are potential different solutions, to respond to this issue that you were suggesting.
So your target is to be capturing and storing 4 million tons of CO2 by 2030. And yet the European Commission is saying that to meet Europe's climate change goals, we should be capturing 280 million tons of CO2 by 2040. So we need Ravenna, we need you to show the way forward, but we need a huge expansion.
Yes.
Very rapid. You're showing the way, but the scale of what has to be done is just
those numbers are scaring us a little bit, but the industry, I would say, because if you look at those numbers and you look at what exists today, you say, okay, wow, that's a massive growth. What I can say is that for sure Ravenna is providing a very good contribution, and actually by 2040 we plan to also expand our project to the second industrial phase, which means 16 million tons per annum. So that's basically the goal that we have after 2030, so by 2040. 16 million tons per annum is still tiny compared to this target, but it's going to give a significant contribution, especially to the southern part of Europe, which is much less rich of geological solution in order to store CO2. And then again, I think that the target is quite high, but if we look back for, again, let me quote again, solar PV or wind, there were targets that looked very, very high, and then as soon as the industry was able to basically to start and to begin to run, they basically caught up quite quickly. I think that if the industry starts, then the development will come, and will come quite quickly.
Italy, you sound as though a good number of Italian politicians are getting linked into this now, because of course across Europe there's still a lot of governments, policymakers who do not realise the need for CCS to the degree that's
I think we have observed a very good degree of support, so we are confident that we will see the right support to kick off to bring this project in Ravenna to its industrial phase, and after Ravenna, obviously, we will be looking into other projects and other opportunities to develop CCS, because, as you said before, let's go back to the former question, Ravenna is important, is sizable, is going to make a difference, but it's not enough, for the decarbonization targets that we need to achieve.
Lots of projects, very, very good. I'm delighted that Snam is a member of CCS Europe. You've got a great project, great enthusiasm, great message that is being conveyed to policymakers here about the need for carbon capture and storage in order to help us achieve our climate change goals. Thank you very much, Paolo.